Hello everyone, my name is Wale Farrow. I'm a tech entrepreneur and welcome to another episode of Tech RoundUp, your weekly opinion, views and analysis of the top tech events happening around the world with a focus on Nigeria. As you can tell, we're doing this episode a little bit differently. On today's episode, we'll review the impact of Apple Pay 5 years after launch. We'll talk about the recent name change at the Ministry of Communication in Nigeria. And we'll talk about the new improved search on Google. Let's get started. About 5 years ago, Apple Pay was launched, and the tech press and pundits around the world said it's a payment and e-commerce game changer, and predicted that plastic card as we know it would disappear a decade later. Even some said the technology will replace PayPal, and investors took note. At the time, eBay, which owned PayPal, saw its stock slide about 6% following the announcement. I recently looked at an article written on payments.com that details the challenges that Apple and Android Pay had faced over the years and why they haven't lived up to expectation. As we know, the technologies are not even available in Nigeria, and I'm sure you wonder why, like I do as well. But at the time of the launch, there were a few factors predicted that would drag the adoption of the solution. And I listed some of them. One, consumer adoption was always going to be a challenge. Getting customers to start using their mobile phones to make payments was almost going to be something to watch out for. Two, at the time, there were very few merchants who could receive contactless payments with their devices. And if the adoption was going to happen, this would have to change. And lastly, and I think most importantly, the consumer muscle memory associated payments in store with using cards. So it was always going to be a battle to change that. But at the end of the story, payments also reported that the opportunity pie for Apple Pay has grown tremendously over the last 5 years. As a matter of fact, the number of iPhones that can use the solution around the world has increased in multiple folds. According to the analysis, in 2015, about 69% of total US adults had a smartphone. Today, that number is about 81%, which is significant. And coupled with that, Apple has been doing a lot of nudging over the last few years to encourage usage. For example, if you upgrade your OS, your upgrade is not deemed complete until you've installed the solution as well. As a result, there's been an increase in the number of compatible iPhones that could, use Apple Pay to process payments, and the number of merchants that could receive contactless devices has also grown, which means, roughly there were about 88 billion consumers in 2015 that could use the solution. In 2019, that number has grown to 768 billion. But 5 years later, Apple Pay, people using it to check out in store is just about 6%, which is even about 1% down, which was 7% in 2017. So in other words, roughly about 1.2 people out of possible 20 people that can use the solution are actually using it. This clearly shows that there's still an association of card payments for in-store payments with customers, and customers are not necessarily gravitating using their mobile phones and app to complete payments. In Nigeria, the situation is very similar, especially when you add cash to the mix, and given the number of smartphones as a percentage of the total number of phone subscribers in Nigeria, which is less than 35%. We'll continue to watch this story and we'll continue to provide updates for you guys out there to see the impact of solutions like this on the payment industry or payment landscape across the world. And to our second story, what's in a name change? Recently, the Federal Executive Council in Nigeria renamed the Federal Ministry of Communication to Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, representing another evolution in the ICT ministry. Remember, several years ago, that ministry used to be called the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology. But in this story, we examine what could be driving this name change and how it may be impacting the expectation and mandate of that ministry. One, there's an ongoing broad expansion of various aspects of information and communication technology, as you are all aware. It's not reasonable to put all these components under one umbrella and management without clear focus. Two, the ongoing digitization demand focus and letting it all hide under broad categorization may mean that Nigeria as a country may not be able to compete and keep up with other developing markets. And three, there's a need to engage private sector, and this requires focus and expansion into areas where this ministry hasn't traditionally focused. With all this said, it's important to expect realization of it's not enough to expect realization of new goals and objectives with just a name change without putting in place the resources required and the efforts required to make those changes happen. On Tech RoundUp, we will review a few things that we feel the ministry must embrace to deliver this new mandate or objective, so to speak. One, there's a need to have a competent, resourceful, and career-focused professional as the minister, or at least have someone supporting the minister directly with this background. With this, it will be easier to create a 21st century vision that matches those of other rapidly developing emerging markets around the world. Two, it's important to have a team of professionals and bureaucrats that can model and create private sector engagement like it's never been done before, because it demands that. And three, there's a need to have an effective interagency collaboration with other key agencies like CBN, like NIPS, like NCC, so that we can create a consistent set of policies that regulates technology and create an enabling environment. You don't want the ministry to be moving in one direction and CBN and NCC moving in a different direction. So there's a need for consistent engagement. And to our last story this week, according to reports, Google search has gotten a little better, and that's very exciting. With the help of the new software called Bidirectional Encoder Representation from Transformers, BERT, which is a way that Google processes natural language. The search engine's algorithm can now interpret conversational full sentence queries rather than overlooking words like for, to, in. And Google executives are calling this one of the biggest leaps forward in the history of search. Google says it gets, and as you know, billions of searches per day. And that this upgrade would affect ranking on 1 out of every 10 searches going forward. Google is leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning to make this improvement, and it's expected that 1 of every 10 searches should get more useful results. Google did this by taking into account smaller words such as in, like I said, for, and at, and it's also paying attention to the arrangement of those words in a search. So one example, to drive this home, if you put how to use GPS with no internet on Google now, Google will take that and take the no into account, and then we show you results related to GPS instruction without internet. This wasn't the way it was processed prior to now. Please keep your comments coming and connect with me on LinkedIn at Wale Farrell. You can also subscribe to our YouTube, Tech RoundUp YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Also, please look at the bottom of your screen for all our social media handles. Follow, like, share, and please join our ever ongoing conversation. Have a great weekend, guys, and see you all again next week.